According to this movie, Top Gun is what the Navy calls its very best flyers, the top 1%. These guys are so good, they're sent back to a special advanced course in aerial dogfighting. And in this school, the competition is really stiff. As Tom Cruise finds out, he's the star. He wants to be named Top Gun.
The best driver in his reel from each class has his name on it. And they have the option to come back here to be Top Gun instructors. You think your name's gonna be on that plaque?
Yes, sir.
That's pretty arrogant, considering the company you're in.
Yes, sir.
I like that in a pilot.
Of course, there has to be a love story. That's because the people who have made this movie have seen an officer and a gentleman. And so Tom Cruise falls in love with this flight instructor who just happens to be the beautiful Kelly McGillis in her first movie since Witness.
When I fly, I'll have you know that my crew and my plane come first.
Well, I'm going to finish my sentence, Lieutenant. My review of your flight performance was right on.
Is that right?
That is right.
But I held something back. I see some real genius in your flying, Maverick, but I can't say that in there. I was afraid that everyone in that tax trailer would see right through me. And I just don't want anyone to know that I've fallen for you.
The love story never amounts to much in this movie, but the aerial scenes are good. The aerial photography in this film is the best I've seen in a real long time.
Mayday, mayday. Mav's in trouble. He's in a flat spin. He's heading out to sea.
This movie kind of falls into two parts. All of the aerial photography is fabulous. The flying scenes are the best since Clint Eastwood's movie Firefox, which I thought was real good. Unfortunately, when any of the characters in this movie have their feet on planet Earth, the movie stinks. All of the earthbound plots are predictable and dreary and unconvincing, and so it's a real split decision. The aerial stuff is great. The rest of the movie means Top Gun only gets 2.5 stars. I'm Roger Ebert. With high technology, for example, E.T., War Games. Now here's a real good one, The Manhattan Project, starring Christopher Cowlett as a real bright young kid from upstate New York who lives near a research factory for nuclear weapons.
A 5-leaf clover, where'd you find it?
Growing outside that lab. You know the odds on that kind of mutation happening naturally without chemicals or radiation or something?
What?
There are none. I looked it up. It's like 1,000,000,000 to 1. It never happens.
Maybe you're just very lucky.
This kid's dream is to win the big science fair in Manhattan, and he thinks he has a project that might win first prize.
But it's got to be judged. I'm going to win first prize.
You're joking.
No. Did you see the junk they got down there?
Paul, forget the science fair. It's over, okay? No more science fair. Look, this is top secret stuff. Nobody sees this. Not ever. You could start a war, for Christ's sake.
What he does is design his own atomic bomb. And nuclear scientist John Lithgow tries to talk him out of trying to enter this project in the science fair. It turns out the bomb is armed and ready to explode. This kid is in way over his head, and Lithgow tries to get him out before they're all blown up.
He's got it all right. There's the core, explosive package.
I'm going to count to 3.
Hey, let me talk to him.
Doctor, stay out of this.
Conroy on that thing.
Come on, this wasn't part of the deal.
2.
Don't hit the box.
Jesus.
He's got plutonium in that hole!
The movie was written and directed by Marshall Brickman, who has written some of Woody Allen's movies, and he's real good at getting the everyday rhythms. These are real people who get involved in this project, not some kinds of heroes in a science fiction movie. That's what makes it scary, and The Manhattan Project is a really good, really exciting, and really funny movie. I give it 4 stars, and I'm Roger Ebert. Hines and Billy Crystal as a couple of tough Chicago streetwise detectives who are always in the middle of trouble. And here's a real funny scene at the beginning of the movie. They've been chasing a guy who has $50,000 in his briefcase. They know it's drug money. They can't figure out what specific crime to charge him with. And so here is their plan to make him want to be arrested.
He also has $50,000 in small bills in a briefcase. As his neighbors, it's your responsibility to make sure there are no suspicious characters or evil perpetrators lurking in the area who would seek to do him harm. Again, $50,000 in small bills, tax-free.
The movie was shot on location in Chicago last winter, a gray, cold winter, and the atmosphere is great in these location shots, like this chase scene.
I can't believe that you missed all 6 shots.
What are you talking about? I hit the windshield 6 times in a row.
No, excuse me, sir. All 6 of mine hit. I don't know where the hell you were. I'm the one who made him swerve.
Hines and Crystal chase the suspect out of his apartment in his underwear, and then he takes a hostage and makes them give him their pants.
We lost a suspect, our keys, our car, our pants.
It could have been worse. We could have been shot.
This is great. This is great.
Why isn't there a cop when you need one?
I never needed one before.
This is the movie's big chase scene. It starts at O'Hare Airport, and how they get onto the elevated tracks in the loop, I don't know, but it's a great idea, and nobody has ever tried it before. You're going to see one Chicago location after another in this movie, and a lot of them haven't been used before. Not only the elevated tracks, but also the interior of the State of Illinois building, where there's a big shootout involving those elevators, and at one point, Gregory Hines comes all the way down from the ceiling on a rope. It's kind of an amazing shot. This is still not a great movie, though. I'd only give it 3 stars because in addition to all the good stuff, there's a lot of other stuff that doesn't quite pay off. It's almost as if Crystal in particular is trying too hard to come up with one-liners that aren't part of his character. 3 stars. I'm Roger Ebert. And cheerful movie that I liked a whole lot, especially because the characters in it are so nice. I liked Meg Tilly, who plays a real New York cop, and then also Judge Reinhold, who you may remember as Eddie Murphy's partner in Beverly Hills Cop. This time, he's a librarian who pretends to be a cop in order to go to an audition for a police charity show. And that's where he first meets Meg Tilly.
What the hell am I doing?
As a result of that audition, Judge Reinhold is a double imposter. He's impersonating a police officer and a ballet dancer. And not only is he in love with Meg Tilly, but her former boyfriend, played by Chicago actor Joe Mantegna, also still is in love with her, and that causes problems in this scene.
Is there somebody else? If there's somebody else, just tell me. Who is it? Never mind. Forget it.
It's risky walking around New York with a police uniform on because in this scene, he gets mistaken for an officer and he's taken as hostage during a bank robbery.
All right, that's enough of that. Open out the door, Leon.
Make him stop dancing. I hate that.
You gonna stop that, Washington, or what?
How about some accompaniment? Cut it out. Wait, here's the big finish. Cut it! Mickey, wait. I love that song. With yellow feathers in her hair and a dress cut down to there, she would merengue and do the jolly on.
We robbing a bank or what?
Go ahead.
Keep an eye on the door, will you?
That was the great American actor Harvey Keitel there as the other one of the bank robbers. Offbeat is a lot of fun. It is not slapstick from beginning to end. It doesn't go in for a lot of corny, goofy, obvious gags. Instead, it's based on that relationship between Judge Reinhold and Meg Tilly. They're funny, they're warm together, the story is off the wall, but I loved it, and I give the movie 3.5 stars. I'm Roger Ebert. Daryl Hannah. She believes that 20 years ago, her father, a famous artist, was burned up in a fire that was set in order to conceal the fact that his paintings were being stolen. It was insurance fraud. Well, it's an interesting theory, and there are a lot of other interesting things that Robert Redford finds to admire about Daryl Hannah.
What? What do you think of me?
Interesting.
The other night when I kissed you, what'd you think of that?
Dangerous.
It's a carefully chosen word.
Well, carefully chosen words are the tools of my profession. I think
Redford is attracted to Hannah, but it's not really love. In fact, the person he loves in this movie is his partner on the defense team, and she is played by Deborah Winger.
She has a nice body.
Oh, sensational body.
I'll pick the adjectives. A good body. Big eyes.
Hypnotic.
Big eyes.
Unforgettable.
Logan, are you going to sleep with her again or not?
Here's Redford's big moment in the courtroom.
I believe that my client murdered Victor Taft in cold blood. Isn't everybody convinced?
Mr. Logan.
Come on, don't hold back. I got my hand up.
I object. Mr. Logan.
You're convinced, aren't you?
Your Honor.
Look, prosecution says she's guilty. Everybody in the jury says she's guilty. Let's save the state of New York a lot of time and money and move directly to sentencing.
Supposed to have a fair.
What?
Isn't she entitled to a fair trial?
Oh, let's give her a fair trial and then convict her.
Legal Eagles was directed by Ivan Reitman, whose last movie was Ghostbusters, and I think there's a lesson there because, like Ghostbusters, this movie has lots of explosions and chases, and not one, not two, but 3 big fire scenes, and I think that's too many. I think the human chemistry between these two people is pretty good. I like the way these three actors work together. There were a lot of funny things, a lot of sweet things, but all around them, way too many pyrotechnics, and they got distracting, so I can only give Legal Eagles 2.5 stars. I'm Roger. Space Camp tells the story of a place that I guess really does exist. It's run by NASA, and it's a place where bright young kids can go to learn all about space. In the movie, Kate Capshaw plays a woman astronaut who's the teacher for a group of these kids. Here's the day where she meets them for the first time.
So what brings you to space camp, Tish?
Well, I did this audit at JPL in radio astronomy. It was unbelievable. I mean, can you imagine an extraterrestrial disc jockey? Like listening to radio waves from space?
This camp must have a pretty high budget because one of the field trips involves an inspection of a real space shuttle.
The next 20 minutes are going to be the most exciting of your life.
20 minutes? I wish 20 days.
Well, of course, the inevitable happens, and that shuttle is accidentally blasted into space with all of those kids and their teacher on board.
I didn't touch a thing, Andy. Honest.
I know, Rudy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've achieved orbit.
Space is wonderful, but the problem is they only have 12 hours worth of oxygen. So Capshaw thinks of a nearby space station that may have emergency supplies.
Oh, damn it. It's no good. I just can't reach it.
Well, she has to. Tell her she has to get him.
She can't, all right?
Make her. It just isn't small enough. Well, I am. It's me! I'm here to rescue you!
Well, of course, it's impossible to look at this movie without thinking of the tragedy of the Space Shuttle Challenger, and this movie, of course, was written, directed, made before that tragedy took place. Now, today, looking at it, it's really just too distracting to see this woman teacher in space with these kids. That undermines the movie, but even apart from that, it's not very good. The special effects are not great. The dialogue during the first half is real artificial and stilted, so I give Space Camp only 1.5 stars. I'm Roger Ebert. Salvador sounds probably like a documentary about politics in Central America, but actually it's more of an offbeat comedy with some real serious stuff in it, starring James Woods as an out-of-work foreign correspondent who takes his buddy Jim Belushi, a disc jockey, along with him as they drive south to try to find work covering the revolution.
You're gonna be a pig-headed, man. Why are they blocking the road?
Stop asking why, man. This ain't Gringo Land, okay? Here, take this. Beat Don Mac cool, all right?
What is this, some kind of tranquilizer?
Yeah, permanent one. Cyanide. Come on.
Woods and Belushi are not exactly the most distinguished team in the history of foreign correspondence. In fact, if I were the border guards of any of these countries, I'd send them back for their press cards.
Because the road's closed.
Son periodistas.
No. No. No, you get out of the car. Get out of the car. Si, senor. Okay. Whatever you do, Doc. Whatever you do, okay? Don't get on the ground.
No trae nada.
What? Oh.
The movie alternates off-the-wall scenes of these two guys trying to cover this story with some very direct and brutal scenes of the war itself. Salvador gets kind of a mixed review. I like the human story of this movie. I like the relationship between James Woods and Jim Belushi. I like the way that Woods was trying to get his Central American girlfriend out of that situation and back to safety in California. On the other hand, there were times when I felt that they were simply reading the political opinions of the screenwriter, that dialogue had turned into speech-making, so I didn't like that so much. I give the movie 3 stars because of the performances, and I'm Roger Ebert. I ordinarily hate to use phrases like this because it sounds like the movie critic isn't doing his job, but here goes. If you liked Alien, you're probably going to like Aliens even more because it's more of the same. It's scarier, it's more frightening, it's more thrilling, it's more violent, it's more horrible, it's more disgusting, and the monsters are more unspeakable and icky than they ever were before. The movie begins with an expedition that goes back to that same planet. Sigourney Weaver is on board to find those aliens that almost wiped her out the last time.
Ripley, what the hell are you doing?
Sigourney Weaver is the only person on board who has any experience of the aliens, and she knows they're so terrible there's only one way to handle them.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
This installation has a substantial dollar value attached to it.
They can bill me.
But no, the guys on board think they ought to go down and check the situation out. So here they are looking for aliens who turn out to be all around them.
Oh my God. Oh, give me the light.
All of the humans in the colony on the planet have been wiped out except for one little girl.
My mommy always said there were no monsters, no real ones, but there are.
The cliffhanging climax. Can Sigourney Weaver save that little girl from aliens who have her wrapped up in a cocoon before the entire planet self-destructs with a nuclear explosion?
Attention, emergency. All personnel must evacuate immediately.
Of course, you notice the movie company didn't let you see any scenes of the real aliens there. Maybe that's because they're afraid that the aliens might turn you off before you even buy your ticket. And that leads me to my reservation about this movie. I think it is a good film. And by the end of the film, my stomach was all clenched up in a knot, and so my advice is if you do like movies like this, you might like it, but if you don't, it'll probably be too much for you. 3.5 stars. I'm Roger Ebert. The movie stars Matthew Broderick, the same teenager who was so good in War Games, and this time he's a teenager who skips school for a day because he wants to spend a whole day exploring downtown Chicago. He also wants to take a friend along and maybe teach that friend a little bit of something about being more independent. Here's the scene where he tries to fool his parents into thinking he's sick.
Annie, you're not going to school like this now.
Oh, fine. What's this? What's his problem?
He doesn't feel well.
Yeah, right. Try that one out. You can fertilize the lawn.
Jeannie? Is that you?
A lot of the time during the movie, Broderick talks directly to the camera, sharing his thoughts about the agonies and joys of adolescence.
I do have a test today. It's on European socialism. I mean, really, what's the point? I'm not European. I don't plan on being European. So who gives a crap for socialists? They could be fascist anarchists. It still wouldn't change the fact that I don't own a car.
The high school dean is his sworn enemy, and this is actor Jeffrey Jones, the same man who played the Emperor in Amadeus.
I've got it right here in front of me. He has missed 9 days.
I asked for a car, I got a computer. How's that for being born under a bad sign?
There are a lot of great Chicago scenes in this movie, including this one where he takes over a parade down Dearborn Street. Ferris Bueller's Day Off was directed by John Hughes, the Chicagoan who makes movies about Chicago teenagers. There are so many fabulous scenes in it, all the way from the Art Institute to Wrigley Field. It's also got a heartwarming story. I give it 3 stars, and I'm Roger Ebert. American Anthem stars Mitch Gaylord, our Olympic gold medal gymnastics winner, as a kid who was dropped off the gymnastics team because of trouble at home. Specifically, he had a fight with his unemployed dad who broke his arm. However, the arm is healed. He sees a girl that he loves on the team. He decides to go out for the team again, but he's still got a lot of problems on the home front.
Why couldn't he just tell me he cares?
Why can't you tell him?
He goes to bed every night worried about you. He thinks he let you down.
He hasn't let me down. It's just the opposite.
Why? Because you're not a big school hero anymore?
That's Michelle Phillips there as his mother. The whole plot is kind of dumb because why can't she just bring them together if they both really want to love each other? Meanwhile, the kid has fallen in love with another gymnast played by Janet Jones.
I heard you used to be a pretty good gymnast. Thinking about coming back?
Nah, I got a job. I work at Jake's building motorcycles. Did you leave anybody behind?
What?
Do you have a boyfriend?
No.
You want one?
There are a lot of gymnastics scenes in this movie, but they all look more like MTV videos. The camera is always shooting into the light. You're always seeing sweat spray off of everybody's hair. This doesn't look like sports. It looks like a night at a very athletic disco. American Anthem is an example of what I call the Klidvik formula. If you spell out those letters, they spell climb from despair to victory, and that is the plot of all the Rocky movies, and it's the plot of all the Rocky ripoffs, and it's the plot of this movie too. It is so predictable. Will he get together with his father? Will he fall in love with a girl? Most importantly, will he win the big match? I think so. I give American Anthem 1/2 star, the dumbest movie of the summer, and I'm Roger Ebert.